normal.
All right, thank you, everybody. We'll get started with our workshop here. Welcome. The afternoon workshop today is called The Art of Novelty. And one of the things that we're attempting to do with the Art of Novelty workshop here is to give you some tools, because it's a workshop, to give you tools that you can take with you out into the field to help handle the questions like, what do I say to somebody who says, I'm wasting a vote? And the key to this is that you have to have a novel way to respond. If you want someone's attention, you need to say something novel that they haven't already heard. If they have already heard your response, you're not getting anywhere with that individual. And so today on the panel, we have three speakers that are going to help us with a lot of experience in not only promoting liberty and freedom, but running for office and with sharing the liberty message. And so I'm going to begin with introductions. On our far right here, Mr. Cohen, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Spike Cohen, and I was the 2020 vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party.
Excellent. Our second speaker in the middle is Mr. Adam Kokesh.
Hi, I'm Adam Kokesh. I used to be novel and interesting, and now I'm a boring candidate for public office. I'm a homesteader living on 10 acres in the mountains of Arizona, and it's really awesome to see that looks like the biggest state convention you've had for the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin, right? Mm-hmm. So thank you to Bob for putting this together, and Nate, months in advance. But also thanks to COVID-19 for making it look much bigger than it really is.
Very good. And our third panelist today is Ms. Ann Harlow. Host. Oh, there's no, oh, did I forget the S. There we go.
All right, I'm Ann Harlow, the current National Secretary of the Libertarian Party.
Excellent. Very good. My name is Robert Burke. I'm a former candidate, and I've been a member of the Libertarian Party of Wisconsin since 2013. And I'll introduce this as my co-host, Ms. Buffin. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, now you all know me. I am your treasurer for the next 2 years. And I wanted to give a little moment here of what made libertarianism novel to me when I first found out about it. And the thing that stuck out to me, it's a political movement built on love, mutual respect, accountability, and peace. And I highly value those things in my personal life and saw the benefit when applied to social or political settings. That's what made it novel to me, and that's why I'm here. Excellent.
So novelty is the basic idea of something being new, original, or unusual. We have to remember that we have a channel issue, which is that there are so many messages being flooded with so much more money and honestly, so much more professional talent than we are ever going to muster, which means that we're never going to have a broader message, but we can have a better message by being novel in our approach. So one of the things I want to start by doing real quick is I want to bring up Jordan Hansen here to talk just for a moment about his experience locally in running a novel campaign. As you can see, Jordan began as short hair, red, oh, I'm dying, red tie, right? He was mistaken for a Republican, but as he ran, he decided to go with the colorful shirts, the bow ties, let his hair grow out, but most importantly, he built a float. Jordan, yes, thank you, it was a great float. Jordan, take a moment and tell folks, what was your inspiration for the float, and what kind of response did you get with the novelty?
Well, when I started running for state assembly, I was in college. I was 21, and I formed a little committee with my libertarian friends in college and Yale and such, and we talked about all the ways that we could get our message out there and how we could get it across to people. We knew we didn't have the kind of funding that Gordon Hintz had. We didn't have the media attention that he would have, but we were the only candidate running against him. There wasn't a Republican. And one of the things that we talked about among the plethora were we could build a parade float, get into the 4th of July parade. And so, like, well, what do I do? What would a libertarian float look like? And I know that I've seen a Republican elephant in a float before, so I said, why don't I build a really, really big porcupine? Like, how big can we get it? Well, originally it was like 14 and a half feet. We took a foot off when it was on the trailer, so it was 13 and a half feet tall on the trailer. I mean, it completely dwarfs us. It was hitting wires. It was kind of problematic. It was too big, but it was absolutely awesome. We probably put that parade in front of 10 to 15,000 people, and we handed out literature all along the way, shook hands. It was a fantastic event.
Did people find a Libertarian in the Parade novel?
I think so.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, me?
Yep, you're all good. All right, Anna?
All right, we're going to move on to some questions here for our panelists. I'm going to start off with one. If you guys have any questions, I can come to you with the mic. Bob will hit over this way. If you want to just raise your hands, we'll pop over to you. So we'll start with you, Spike.
Sure.
Tell me a story about a novel campaign idea that you have used personally.
So probably the most novel thing that I did, or one of the first big novel things that I did, was during the nomination contest when I was running for the vice presidential nomination. I saw on the second, I think it was the second convention I went to. Actually, no, it was the first one. Right after I had announced that I was running for the presidential nomination, I went to the Tennessee convention. And I'm driving to Tennessee, and it's about 10 hours away from home. So I'm driving to Tennessee, and I have to stop for gas once, and I go to the hotel, and I had to stop somewhere to get food, and then I go to the convention. And I realized that in that time, I had, between stopping at a gas station, and this was pre-COVID, so everything was packed, going to the grocery store, going to the hotel, and then going to the larger convention center where our smaller venue was inside of it, I realized that I had crossed thousands of people to get together with dozens of libertarians to talk about libertarianism, which we all already agree on. And I thought, what a missed opportunity to speak to all those other people who haven't heard our ideas, or at least probably 90 to 95% of whom had not heard our ideas. So after that, I changed a lot of things. I still went to some conventions, but I started doing more publicly going to what we called pound the pavement events, where we actually went out and talked to everyday people that were not part of the party and people who we often had not done a lot of outreach directly to. So we did, and this was again pre-COVID when everything shut down, but we were able to do a few events, the most notable of which was going to UNC Greensboro and talking with probably well over, I'd say somewhere around 1,000 students during the day. It was a couple dozen of us that went out there. And also going on door knocking tours in housing projects in Wilmington, North Carolina. And videotaping it and taking pictures to show libertarians, not only is this what I plan to do if I get your nomination, but this is what we as libertarians should be doing. It is good for us to get together and do these things and to nominate candidates and to do our platform and our bylaws and to sharpening steel with our ideas and talking about our philosophy. It is exponentially more important that we get in front of normal everyday people to share our ideas. But in making that tweak, that was the first thing that really set me apart from anyone else that was running for the vice presidential nomination, was that, yes, I'm going to come and speak with libertarians. Delegate service is important to our process. But more importantly, if you pick me, here is how I'm going to go out and spread the message of liberty.
Adam, I don't know that you were the first person to be an Iraq veteran against the war, but that's a novel position. What sort of positions like that, or how did that specific, if you will, novel position impact people when you discuss the idea that there are people that went to war that disagree with it?
Oh, come on, man. I was going to save the military BS for the second question. We got to go jump straight into that? Okay. Well, no, I want to share something else about this, aside from the fact that it's really nice that not only is Spike dressed better than me, according to Bob this morning, he's also on my far right.
Economic.
And he was manning the Mises Caucus table earlier. But the thing for me, it's kind of similar to your answer, actually, that I think it's what was novel about my presidential campaign was the idea of localization. And to me, it was much simpler as, well, hey, if you're going to run for president, someone's going to give you the ring of power. What do you do with it? Well, duh, you throw it in the fire, right? And I think this is a really important thing for libertarians as a whole to get, that I've gotten better as I've matured in this movement, believe it or not, that if we get closer to our principles that we know are inherent to humanity, like why are you a libertarian? Because you're an independent consciousness in your own body, you have free will, that you want to be respected in the world, right? Yep. And I love Larry Sharp's quote, a libertarian says you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want, as long as you don't force it on anybody. And if we play politics, I mean, Bob thinks this is a social club that runs mock candidates. But that's just, I think everybody with every strategy that's positive, as he says, if you're in on the non-aggression principle, you can be a part of this. But the thing is, we get tricked into playing politics. We get fooled to put on a tie like this chump over here. And, look
You were
look good
wearing
in
a
a suit.
tie last
Hey,
year,
hey,
by the way.
Doesn't always wear a shirt.
I'm glad I wasn't the nominee, otherwise I'd have to wear a tie to
That's-
state
there you
conventions
go,
too,
that-
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
But when I talk to people about localization, I was talking about their issues. Localization is the everybody gets what they want strategy. My politics don't matter. What do you want? What do you want in your community? When I go to the extremes, my fun talking point on this was always, as someone who's half Jewish and got that all in my family background and was directly connected to all the worst of that, like, okay, the rise of white nationalism as a fringe movement in the United States genuinely disturbs me. And I know this is something that's actually relevant. When they go, Jews will not replace us, it's like, some of us are like, well, okay, I wasn't trying to replace you, but sure.
Yeah.
It's viscerally disturbing, but I can still say to those people, hey, you want an ethno-state? I think that's really dumb. I think it's really ugly. But I still want you to have the right to do that if you can do it voluntarily. If you want to form a community with your standards, that's gross. I won't be a part of it, but I want you to have that right. And I go to the other extreme. You're a gun-grabbing leftist who wants to live in a nudist commune in the woods. That's cool. I'll take my entertainment value from a distance, but I want you to have that right too. And that thing about us as libertarians getting deeper in our principles that we know motivate us as human beings, when we can connect with people on that, we're not playing politics. This is a bigger game. When you can communicate with that, then you connect with people on a spiritual level. And just this little flip, this is the novel part, strategically say, don't talk about politics, don't talk about issues, talk about principles. And when you make it about localization, then you connect with people with what motivates us to be here. And if there's one thing we're missing as a movement, it's how to make the rest of the country, the rest of the world understand why we care so much about these ideas. And so when I was campaigning and beating the streets and was just talking to strangers, never heard any of this, I'm for the everybody gets what they want strategy. I'm for localization. I'm a human being, and I'm a libertarian because I love you, and I want you to get what you want. And that's actually pretty novel in American politics.
Karen Ann, yes. Karen Ann, you have a lot of novelty in your life. You have a lot of novelty in your life. You have had a lot of novel experiences. This is my friend, by the way, Star Child, who at the National Convention in 2018 was inspired to support her run for secretary. A lot of folks wore the purple wig, or the pink wig, excuse me. He actually is a beautiful individual, came in a whole dress. But what is that like to inspire people? What is your personal portion in that?
My personal
Portion.
oh Lord.
It's a good word for this.
Well, as I said, I haven't run any public office campaigns yet, but I obviously have run 3 successful internal national office campaigns. And some people the pink hair is why the Libertarian Party doesn't win. If only I didn't have pink hair, we would have we would be in charge of the country.
We run everything.
Exactly. But people, I'm not as dumb as the pink hair might insinuate. It was a definite strategy decision because when
Wait, are you trying to say that other women with pink hair are dumb?
No, I'm just saying people have that impression sometime. Or people think like I just came off the Women's March with a pussy hat on, which I have not. But it was a deliberate, this wasn't, I love the pink hair and I love doing weird things, but it was a deliberate branding decision because I knew I wanted to run for Region 1 representative. Nobody really knew who I am. It's hard to get people to remember your name. A lot of people still don't know my name, but you want to know who almost everybody in the party knows? The pink-haired lady. So it was a definite branding decision because a lot of people forget names, but they don't forget something that's really unusual. But you have to do it authentic to yourself. If you weren't the type of person who would have pink hair, you're not going to pull it off well. But I've had all kinds of weird hair before, so this is actually one of my milder styles. But when you have a good branding, people will emulate it. So yeah, I brought the pink wigs, I brought the Liberty crowns, And people liked it, and it gave them a way to participate with you. You want to make people your partners and participate with you, and I think that's always a winning strategy. Novelty is not always just doing something that somebody hasn't done before. It's doing something memorable. Because I really believe that everything is a remix. You're not going to do anything somebody hasn't done before. But you need to be memorable, and you always do have to think about your branding. But then there's other things that are just like old school. When I wrote my postcards out to delegates asking them to vote for me, I hand wrote every single one. And if I knew the person, I personalized it. Little things like that make a difference. And on the back of it, so they wouldn't just throw it out, Kara Schultz taught me this. She used to put recipes on the back of her cards. So since this was for a convention, I put a cheat sheet for Robert's Rules of Order, and almost everybody brought that card with them to convention. They didn't just throw it out. So, little things like that do make a difference. But also, no matter if you're running for public office or internal office, this shouldn't be memorable or novel, but very few people do it. Act like you have the job already the whole time you're running it. So when I was trying to run for region representative, I attended every single LNC meeting and recorded on social media my votes as if I already had that job. And you could do that very easily as well for public office. Follow what the legislature's doing and act like this is your vote and explain it. And you learn the process, so you actually are really ready for the job when you get there. Another thing that shouldn't be memorable or novel is, my personal opinion, absolutely refused a negative campaign. And I can tell you a story. I think I was in, I'm sorry, I've been everywhere. I think it was Missouri. And I was running for secretary for the first time at that time. And there's these questions that people love to ask in these panel discussions sometimes is, what's the best thing about you? Okay, whatever. But they always want to say, well, what's the worst thing about your opponent or something like that? And I refused to answer the question. I said, I'm just not going to do that. It's not in my nature to do that. And they said, well, what if we think that's, being cagey or, whatever negative thing, and what if we won't vote for you because you wouldn't do that? I said, then don't vote for me because I'm not your candidate if you want somebody who's going to be willing to say something negative. And that shouldn't be novel, but it certainly was memorable. I think I did get quite a few votes in that state, but that was genuine also. I just don't, do that sort of thing. But I'm going to tell you something also about public office. My husband ran for town council in Castle Rock, and he really, really wants to run again. However, the lady who beat him in that race, her first name is Caryn, which happens to be my first name. So I'm like, no, you're not running next time, I am. Because I've got instant name recognition, because they know their current representative is a lady with an unusual first name. And I'm not even going to use my last name in my advertising. It's going to be vote for Karen. And I want to get another libertarian in that race, because maybe I'll just split the vote with the incumbent, and then we can slip another libertarian in there. So you've always got to be thinking of things like that. And I've got one more example. I'm so sorry. It's a guy in Nevada named David Coburn. And he had his yard signs. They were garish. They were purple with the worst clip art from like the 1990s you can find, papyrus font and Comic Sans font. And the slogan he put on it was, terrible at graphic design, but great at whatever the position was he ran. Things like that people remember. So that's my input
I'd just
there.
like to clarify, I do think that Comic Sans is an act of aggression. I just want to say, make that clear very clearly.
Oh, that's beautiful. Does anybody in the room have a favorite? And by the way, we have cans of silly string here, so if you do get a chance to speak and it's longer than 30 seconds and it's not valued information, we're going to hit you. Anybody have any novel personal statements that they've come across or that they've made they'd like to share? Oh, here we go. John.
Sure. Similar to Karen's race that she's talking about running, I ran for city council a couple times in my local city, right after my father ran for mayor and got 48% of the votes. So as you know, I'm John Phillips Jr. So I just put John Phillips on it. Worked very well.
I don't know, I get scared when I hear Karen versus Karen.
Yeah.
Doesn't America have enough of them right now?
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
we're Karens in camouflage. It's not Karen, so you don't have to worry. We don't want to talk to the manager.
Yeah, Karen, we're actually very familiar with that tactic in Wisconsin. In 2014, I ran for governor. I'm Robert Burke. The Democrat was Mary Burke. So
It's effective.
I had someone ask me, Bob, did you do this because of the name recognition? I go, yeah, of course I did. It's $1 million ordeal. Anybody who's in politics would tell you that's a good move.
Especially in nonpartisan races, because you don't put your party on the sign, so it's just the name.
Yep. Anna, why don't you ask a new question? Start with a different panelist.
Yes, I'm going to start with you, Adam. Tell me about your favorite statements and why it matters to your experience as a candidate or as an activist.
I don't know, I was just thinking about how hard it would be to change my name to Donald J. Trump. Is that... Those people are dumb enough to vote for anything, right? No, but the statement that sticks with me from my activism is Ron Paul, who said, Ron Paul's statement when he said, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And you want a mantra, you want something to write on your arm. Hey, if you're not having fun, stop and ask yourself why. And you think about what we're doing, like, this isn't politics. I mean, everybody in this room who's been here for more than 5 minutes, been involved with the party, goes, oh yeah, we're not really a political party. I mean, real libertarians don't join political parties anyway, right? But here, what we're doing is, we're libertarians because we believe in freedom, we believe in the non-aggression principle, but we're active because we see that idea is relevant to human suffering and injustice in the world. And what we're doing is beautiful and righteous in advancing humanity and standing up for what's right and alleviating the greatest single, aside from like anger or hunger, like the greatest single institutional source of suffering in the world today, governments. And when you stay true to that, if you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And every time I've caught myself stressed out about something, or worried about something, or concerned that somebody doesn't like me in the party, or there's some other bullshit, like, yeah, no, that's not fun, I'm gonna go do something else. And every time it's like, okay, now I'm doing something better for freedom too. Because what's that ultimately about? We're serving humanity. We want to make other people's lives better. And one other thing on this, to tie it all together, in my book, Freedom, which is free at thefreedomline.com in every digital format possible, I talk about emotional freedom, right? We know that we are controlled by a lot of psychological, emotional propaganda manipulation. And we have allowed ourselves to be programmed to give up the most important sovereignty of all of our head space, our inner space, what it means to be in your own head, to have that freedom to compose your mind. Like as animals, basic psychology advice, we will have responses to stimuli in the world. But because we're conscious human beings, we get to choose the response to that response. You have the greatest gift in the universe of being able to choose your attitude, your demeanor, your outlook at all times. That's emotional freedom. So I say, what's the point of being free if you don't know how to be happy? If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right.
Spike, tell me what
Ron
it is
Paul.
tell me what it is to make a novel public statement, right? What does it take? What is it about a statement that would make it worthy of being considered a novel way of expressing something?
I think you need to make a statement that gets people's attention and is just enough on the fringes of acceptability that it makes people go, whoa, wait a second, and has an actual truth behind it that you're trying to share.
It only feels kinky the first time.
Well, that's the thing. So it's, in order to move, we talk about the Overton window, or Tom Woods calls it the
3x5 card of allowable
opinion. All of these things are, if you're going to shift it, which you have to, our ideas are outside of what's considered allowable, and it's more like 3 by 5 micrometers, like it's a tiny, tiny little window. In order to shift it over to our ideas, there has to be some discomfort. There has to be a little bit of, hey, wait a second, where are we going with this? You have to get them. So, a statement has to be something that it gets just enough attention that it shifts the subject. So, for example, when I get asked about healthcare and they want me to answer on their terms, do I believe in Medicare for all, or do I believe in the status quo, or do I believe in something else? Almost always the way I answer that is saying, it's interesting that politicians will argue all day long about who should be paying for the bill. Is it the patient? Is it the taxpayer? Is it some combination in between? But none of them want to talk about why the bill's so damn high to begin with. That little bit of a shift makes people think, oh, wow, why even is that? Why is that they're not talking about it? And then you can have that longer conversation. Whereas if I had just started drilling into the history of the insurance thing and how FDR's wage caps led to the insurance program, which started driving up costs because it separated the consumer from the person actually paying for it, and that it removes the price equilibrium and all, they're going to stop paying attention. They want to know, how am I going to be able to afford health care? But if you can say, hey, here's the real problem, is that no one's talking about why the fact that the bill's going through the roof, which is a much bigger subject than who should be paying that bill, then you can have that bigger conversation. And of course, the answer is the taxpayer shouldn't be paying for any of this, but the bill should be so much lower that the patient can easily pay it, and they have many different options to choose from. But you have that conversation by reframing it the way that you want to, and you do it by starting with a statement that makes them feel just uncomfortable enough and piques their interest just enough so that you can actually have that longer conversation that needs to be had to be able to sell them on it.
I like that very much. Karen Ann, question, and then tell us your thoughts on making novel statements. When we say that a statement to be novel maybe has to make you a little bit uncomfortable, describe that discomfort you think that is a good quality. Because discomfort isn't usually a thing with good quality, but I think that Spike's right.
No, I think he's right too, but it also depends upon the personality of the person. You'll always hear me pounding home, you have to be genuine to yourself. And something that would work for Spike or me might not work for you, and vice versa. I'm going to give a really extreme example, kind of in a way, but I get a lot of pushback with people because I openly call myself an anarchist, and they go, that only scares people away. I go, well, it doesn't in my world. No. It's opened doors for me. Maybe it's because I'm a middle-aged person with pink hair that they don't think I'm gonna be throwing a Molotov cocktail at them. But for whatever reason, it's opened way more doors than it's closed. Yep. But that right there, let me tell you, the biggest outreach item that I've worn around town that I have to give the buttons off of me, and if I wasn't a female, I'd probably have to give the shirt off of me, is the slogan I'd walk around with, legalize recreational cocaine. That was just enough to open conversations. I've had more conversations.
We didn't get applaud for this.
Yes. Well, and we've seen this in elections. This is one of the things that's very interesting. In Wisconsin, you still have complete prohibition, but when I ran in 2014, there was literally no candidate on a statewide ballot talking about marijuana legalization. It was, you go on Wisconsin Public Radio and the lady goes, after 1 minute of just talking about prohibition, going, let's talk about something else. Yeah, I know you don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable because you guys believe it's a good system.
Bob, if I may on that.
Please do.
There's a temptation in all of this, and the making a novel statement makes it sound like this panel was inspired by the novel coronavirus, which makes me think of something that came up on my podcast the other day, that I kind of take what I think is a moderate, reasoned approach on COVID. Like, it's not all fake and all bullshit, but it's being exaggerated. I don't take the fear-mongering on the vaccine and go, oh, well, the vaccine's gonna make you grow an arm out of your head, and you're gonna die of blood clots and all that, because then you're doing the same thing that they're doing. And again, like being sucked into their game of playing politics, it's really important to stay separate from that. And I think that while there's this temptation to compromise or be sensationalistic to move people, in this pursuit of novelty, I would say it's almost more important to stay true to your principles and your intellectual integrity. You know, otherwise, next thing you know, you sound like Alex Jones, right? And who knows where you go after that. I don't know. But there's always this temptation to say, well, we have to do something to get people's attention. Over what time frame? Do you need their attention now? Is it better to maintain a reputation as having intellectual integrity for the long run and being just that cool, calm, collected person in the corner who's always got the right answers time and time again when the rest of the world is going crazy? Like, I do take, I mean, this might be rhetorical to take issue with something you're saying about libertarian ideas are off the card. It's like, not for most people. Hey, a world without violence and coercion, like we put it in those terms, right?
Right.
I mean, I know your point.
Yeah.
Is that like in mainstream politics,
mainstream
there's
discussion, right.
anything that's outside of this pretend Overton window, they can demonize and say, well, you're on the far right, you know, like on the stage.
Yeah, I want to clarify on that. I certainly was not saying, I mean, what libertarianism is what you were taught as a kid. Don't hurt people, don't take things from people, get people's consent before you do something. The discussion, and this is why I also, we are often referred to within the party as radicals. I think the radicals are the ones who are saying we should rob everyone and create this massive cartel and monopoly on violence. I think they're the radicals. I think we're the ones actually proposing the most moderate solution there, the most reasonable solution there. But yeah, no, when I'm saying that the flashcard of allowable opinion or whatever, I'm referring to what the national conversation is, which is largely guided by corporate media for that purpose, and we have to drag it back. But no, I mean, our ideas, if we didn't think our ideas were the most reasonable, we wouldn't be here. We're not here to be clowns. We're here to put it back to how it should be.
Okay, that's a perfect statement. We're not here to be clowns. So when is novelty? When is it too novel? When is it too much? What is your experience with that?
Are we starting with me? I think that it matters, and like Karen Ann said before, I think it's from person to person. I think one person being outrageous is going to be more genuine looking than someone else being outrageous because they think that's what they're supposed to do, and it comes off as hackneyed and not genuine. I think it's also more important that it actually have a purpose. So if you go and you are outrageous and you're even being genuine to yourself, but you don't actually have something that you're driving it to, then you're really not doing anything other than saying, hey, everyone, look at me. If you say, hey, everyone, look at me, and everyone looks at you, and then you keep doing that thing, or you stop and say, thank you for looking at me, and walk away, then you didn't accomplish much other than make them wonder why they had to look at you. But if you say, hey, look at me, and they look at you, and then you have an actual thing that you want to tell them, you have an actual message that you want to show them, then that's where I think that that's important. But I think when it comes to being too, we can all look at examples of people being outrageous and there not being a purpose. I'd say two examples of one versus the other. Vermin Supreme, love him or hate him, when he gets people's attention, he has an actual message behind it. I'm offering you free ponies and zombie power and unlimited this and unlimited that. How much more or less ridiculous is that than all these other politicians that are promising you stuff that you know is fantasy and isn't going to happen? And you have to figure out which lie you like the most. If we're doing that, I'm giving you free ponies. That's the best lie ever.
I don't know, I liked, I'm going to take your guns and give you better guns. That
yeah,
was a better
I'm going to take
lie.
your guns and give you better guns. A contrast to that is if, for example, someone was to strip naked on a stage and then dance around and then walk away. Okay, great, you were outrageous, everyone looked at you. What? Why? What was the purpose of that? What was the message of that? Was there a reason for that? Or did you just want everyone's attention? Okay, great, you have our attention, and now most people don't like you. What was the purpose of that?
Is the purpose to be liked is always the question. Karen Ann, what about unique positions? You know, when we're talking about outrageous acts, sometimes we're talking about outrageous claims, but then the question comes down, not all outrageous claims have been proved false or wrong. Are unique positions something worthwhile being novel on? Is it worthwhile ever, broaching some of these topics that the general population don't want to talk about, like 9/11?
No, definitely. And in fact, I know nobody here is going to believe this when I say this, but I'm involved in a controversy right now. And part of it is with some of our national party messaging. Over the past 3 weeks, we've made statements that tangentially dealt with the drug war issue. And each time, I thought the statement we made wasn't, not that it wasn't true, it was absolutely true. Yes, pot should be legalized. possession of drugs shouldn't be an issue. But you want to know what? Those aren't a lot. There's a ton of Republicans and Democrats that both say both things. And I don't believe that's how third-party politics work. So my complaint was you should have affirmed those things and then took the next step to expand people's minds. So I believe those ones where it said, well, possession shouldn't have been. I think we should have said sale shouldn't have been. And you don't need to be like, oh, you need to have vending machines of heroin in third grade. That's not what I'm saying. But the Overton window does not move unless you have to push into slightly uncomfortable.
All right, Adam, talking about, pushing into slightly uncomfortable, you have some experience in making police slightly uncomfortable, right?
Making who? Oh, he does, not me. I'm scared of public. I
Yeah,
told
no.
him, I'll
Adam,
never get arrested because I don't do public showers.
Oh, gosh, there you go.
By the way, about that, I helped Karen Ann figure out a way to be way more comfortable facing the state enforcers in the future because, and every libertarian at least should know this, if you go to jail and you're scared of group showers or any of the other things to be afraid of in jail, all you have to do is refuse to take the TB test shot when you go in and they put you in medical isolation. You get non-punitive solitary. And I've had good success with that.
Spike, have you taken any unique positions? Again, like I said, when I ran, nobody wanted to talk about marijuana. That was unique and novel because nobody else was talking about it. But the cocaine legalization, sex work, a whole host of things are unique positions that we could take. I thought if you don't know the picture at the top, at our national convention, rather than having a number of soldiers walk in and show how proud they were that they were war heroes, ours walked in and did a widow's parade. Yeah, it was very moving. And in the middle there with the umbrella is Star Child again. Yeah, she was beautiful that day. So let's for time's sake, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide here and talk about the 2022 convention and just get some ideas. What would be a novel or a unique convention location in the state of Wisconsin and why? What would make this more novel and more unique to bring individuals to that they go, wow, this was interesting. Let's start on the stage here. Karen Ann, what do you think? You've been to a number of conventions. What are some unique and novel things conventions have done?
Oh, I hate to say it, but most conventions don't really operate on that principle.
Yeah.
So I couldn't give a real example like that has already happened, but I can tell you something national is planning on doing in Colorado in the end of August-ish. And when the pitch was being done to the LNC, the one thing I remember about it is that apparently there's hatchet throwing, and that intrigued me. It's not that I think we should be throwing hatchets at each other, but having some different kinds of events. I mean, conventions in general are kind of boring. So, yeah, I can't really give real life examples, but I certainly encourage people to start to think about that, particularly as you're trying to attract younger people.
Spike, Adam, do you guys have any thoughts on on something novel to do to the conventions?
Basic thing we get wrong is we look at the old parties and go, oh, we're a party. We got to have meetings and stuff. And they're like, and
I
we
love
make that
meetings.
You are a unique individual, Karen.
If you would like to debate commas after the panel, you can go talk to Karen in the lobby. But no, there's the old parties, they do their business a lot more efficiently. We have, and it's a good thing in some ways, and to the advice for the incoming chair here, Tony, that you want to have conventions that, like when they're well run from the floor, everyone can participate and it feels consensual and everybody's coming together in the main effort. But what do the old parties make their conventions mainly about? It's a fun social event and a big PR stunt. And we should be having a lot more fun with that. More party, less business, and more outward facing, more fun. And one thing I want to say about the LP as a whole in this sort of spirit is that one of the ways we should be differentiating ourselves from the old parties is actually more of the fun, less of the business. And we're doing it the other way around, really. And
It's the social club side of it.
yeah, right. But even then, even as a serious party, If you're a serious political party and you really want to oppress as many Americans as possible, like the Democrats and Republicans, you do your business in back rooms, you get it done, you get it organized, you raise the money, and then you have a party.
I'm coming for you with that less business stuff. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it needs to be open and official and Robert's rules, so it's fair and inclusive and accessible.
You got to go
But
to
it
sleep
shouldn't.
sometime.
It's not. It's yeah. There'll be plenty of time to sleep when the Libertarian Convention is over.
Does someone have something novel about a convention or a convention location they'd like to share? And if you catch over here, I'll catch over here real quick. Actually, John spoke. Go ahead, take yours first.
The California State Party has had several of their conventions on cruise boats.
Problem is cost.
Yeah, I was going to say
That is a problem, it's cost. But one of the things that I like as a novel approach for a convention is to do it with something else. Say, have it where the ICE headquarters is and stage a protest as part of your convention.
Yeah, I think the LP should be a lot more inclusive as an umbrella organization for freedom-oriented activism. I think people who want to be a part of this community that we have here, how many people in Wisconsin, I mean, raise your hand if you know an activist who isn't here, who you wish was here right now, and if the LP was more inclusive as an umbrella for freedom activism, might be here and make this a real freedom convention for Wisconsin, at which we do LP business and all that stuff, as opposed to business-centric.
Dan Berman actually had an idea, and I forget, he had a name for it, but it would be basically where at the exact same time as a convention in a city or for a state convention or something like that, he would have a huge party and there would be no business, and it would just be parties with musicians and artists and comedians and everything else and entertainment. And the idea was whatever you paid to get into that, you could also, if you wanted to, then go over to the convention and be a part of that as well for anything you wanted to. And so his whole idea was kind of creating this thing adjacent to it, and it would bring people in, and you could also give them literature and everything else, so they were getting, liberty pilled while they were there. But if they wanted to be a part or check out what was happening at the convention, their entry fee also covered the cost of doing that, as sort of a cost, as sort of a proof of concept of would that work? Could we get more people in just having fun outside of it?
Evan, you had something to share?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. Just to give the 920 a little more representation, which to those unaware is the thumb of Wisconsin. This is, of course, Wisconsin. We are very well known for the legendary Green Bay Packers. And Lambeau Field does have suites, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had a conference room like this. If we could possibly have a convention there, I'm sure that would be something really great to advertise.
Actually, I think your new treasurer, Anna Buffman, who is so welcoming here. I mean, this is really like Wisconsin, America's, land of plenty. Bacon ranch pretzels. Crunchy pretzels with the salty and smoky flavor of bacon cooled by creamy ranch.
Are those made in Wisconsin?
Yes.
Oh,
these
wow.
Where else would they be made,
Bacon,
Spike?
right? That's
China.
a good point. Good point.
Seriously. No.
Back in the corner.
I would like to say and tie our movement with some of the topics that you are meeting with, right? Being local and getting into that. Another thing that we see really kind of following that movement is the farm to table and the food movement. So a potential is looking at a farm venue or something like that to really kind of tie the two together, because farm to table and eating local has been such a huge movement lately.
Another thing that we're doing in Colorado, actually, is my wife Tasha. I'm Tasha's guest, by the way, Spike Cohen. Is that Tasha is actually going to? They asked her if she wanted to speak, if she wanted to have a slot to speak, and she said, "Well, I don't really have anything I'd like to tell you, but if you'd like, we could organize some kind of local charity thing.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know better what's in your area that's needed. So we're going to have a moment of service during the convention where we're actually going to be going to a soup kitchen. Both to demonstrate that libertarians do care, but also to give as again, another proof of concept. If we do things again, the business is necessary, and like Adam said, and I'm so that Karen doesn't come after me too, it does have to happen, we do have to have that. But there are other things that we can do, either as part of the convention, in addition to the convention, or adjacent to the convention, where we are demonstrating what it is we want to do as libertarians, whether it is soup kitchen service, and I know Jake has been talking about, coming together with having libertarian volunteerism type stuff in each county, whether it is just having fun, entertaining events that we invite people to that are ostensibly about liberty, and we hand out stuff talking about our ideas, but it's just to get people there to be entertained. Anything that we can do to get people in to hear our ideas, because our ideas are the best ideas out there. We don't need to do, Republicans and Democrats have the benefit of getting all the corporate money and the stolen taxpayer money to pay for their campaigns and their outreach. Their problem is that their ideas suck. We have the exact opposite problem. We have to work hard to get the money and the funding and the attention of people, but our ideas sell themselves. We just got to get people in front of us. So anything novel that we can do, and I'm glad that we're talking about novelty, anything that we can do to get us more excited to get together and do things more often together and get more other people excited to come in and get involved in it, that's what we should be doing so that we can move forward.
Can I say something to the last comment there real quick?
Yeah, make it quick. We're going to do a quick wrap up. We got one more comment.
How many of you, when you changed your politics, changed your lifestyle?
Yeah.
Became to be more libertarian, right? Like the farm to table, being more conscientious of everything. And in between the ideas and the emotional freedom is this whole other set of practical lifestyle ideas that we embrace, and we've been sort of, like the anarchy, like the A word. Screw it, I'm a homesteader. I'm a long-haired country boy who likes to get stoned in the morning and drunk in the
hair's not
afternoon.
that long.
I'm working on it before it disappears, okay? But no, let's share those, and being more umbrella and more inclusive. Let's share these things that are valuable to us. Hey, like Jacob's story, I'm not afraid to smoke pot anymore. Saved his life, possibly, right? How many people could we save by just, hey, try this. This might make your life better. It's more useful than, by the way, you should know that I'm right about everything because I'm libertarian. Right. And I am but that's separate. Let me give you something useful too.
Yeah, no, I'd like to hear the question. Yeah.
In 2004, we had the Libertarian presidential debate in the Wisconsin Capitol in Madison. Public building, public room. Can we act like we own it for a convention?
I'm slightly hard.
Can we act like we own a public space if we're using a government building for a convention?
Well, we had a Libertarian candidate presidential debate in the Wisconsin Capitol building. Could we have a convention inside the Capitol building? Is there public meeting space? Are we allowed to use it?
There's space. That's an interesting idea. We can talk
Think about it.
Yeah, the problem with the Capitol is the parking sucks. Right? And by the way, there's no food at the Capitol either. So, all right, last question for the panelists. So each, just take a moment or so and give me a sense of what novelty going forward would look like. What is it to be novel in 2021 and 2022 election that you'd like to see someone do? Carrie Ann?
Well, I think there's a good lesson we should have learned from bad Trump. One thing about Trump is Trump was Trump. You knew what you were getting when you bought him. And in the fact that so many people gravitated to him, I don't think it was to him. I think it was to actual genuineness in politics. He was genuinely bad, but I come from a church background, and we all know some of the church people. Hi, how are you? All that. Politicians are the same way, and I think we need to be real people, more real. And I think that is what we need to be going forward. And the charity thing really helps with that. It shouldn't just be at conventions. Like our county, we adopted a canine rescue. And not to do it though to get the party's name out. Do it because it's the right thing to do, and you're modeling the voluntary society that we want to have.
Yeah. Amen. That would be novel. That would be very novel to model what we want. Spike, how about you? How about a closing thought on novelty?
I'm angry because she sort of took my answer. I think that we should be focusing more on demonstrating how libertarianism works. And this is, I don't know if your question was specifically for the national campaign, like for whoever runs for president in 2024, or just
Big as
in
you'd
general.
like, or
Yeah.
as small as you'd like.
Yeah, honestly, this applies to everyone. We should be demonstrating how it works. This does two things. It shows how it works, and it also disabuses people of the notion that we don't care about anyone. A lot of our messaging that sounds good to us sounds like neglect to everyone else. Because, and I think it was Joe that said this earlier, Joe Jorgensen that said this earlier, people have this kind of implicit belief, because it's intended to be told this way, that if government doesn't take care of this, that it's not going to happen. Going even further on that, that means if you don't support government doing something, then you don't want it to happen. So if we lead with things like, for example, and I know that a lot of people like this phrase, and it sounds good to us, we're going to take over the world and leave you alone. That sounds really good to us because we're thinking police brutality, surveillance, war, people's lives being ruined. But what they think is healthcare, education, food.
Grandma.
Leave you out in the cold.
It means we're going to leave you outside. You're screwed. Good luck with your student loans. Good luck with your health care. Good luck with your education. And if they heard us mention the invisible hand at any point during that, what they're hearing is, we're going to take away your health care and replace it with magic. Here is the problem. Our messaging sounds great to people that are already predisposed to our ideas. If instead, a small shift towards how it benefits people, and the way you can do that is by demonstrating that benefit, it not only does away with the notion that we don't care about them, but it replaces it with a new notion. Libertarians care. Libertarians are leading with caring. So from that point forward, they have to debate our ideas against us on, well, we know you care about this, but here's why we think you are wrong. If we lead with caring, if we lead with the fact that we care more than anyone else does about it, and here's how we're showing that we care about it, all of our ideas fall under that, and they now have to debate us on our terms instead of theirs.
True. Adam, you get the last thought on the panel here today? What is it about novelty that you'd like to depart to people here as we close out?
Well, I'm going to answer your question in two parts because I know you want me to play the military card, so I'll start with that. First, what's novel about that for me is getting to the bottom of the rabbit hole on militarism. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you stand up and blow smoke up your butts, but how many people in this room are prior military service? You look around. It's about twice the general population. No, don't applaud. Don't applaud. We're not going to do that here. Because joining the military in this day and age is dangerously naive, irresponsibly reckless, and ignorant. That's what it means to join the military today. But what's behind that is a legitimate sentiment. And the story of America is the perversion of freedom by militarism into what we're experiencing today. The founders of this country were against what they called a standing army. They wanted a decentralized militia-based defense. Not only that, but the Constitution that we live under today is not a legitimate Constitution. If you're a constitutionalist because you believe that governments should exist with the consent of the governed, this Constitution is the product of a coup. We were being governed before 1789 by the Articles of Confederation.
Yep.
It was the creation of a stronger central authority to create a central bank and a standing army and the power to tax. That's why we have the militarist central government that we have today. And it is a perversion of what it means to be a warrior. To put your life on the line, to defend other people, to do the right thing, to protect those who can't protect themselves. That's a part of human society that should be valued and cherished and has been perverted into soldiering. Killing for politicians. Fuck that. So why do we play this card? I'm starting a nonprofit called Homefront Battle Buddies, and our mission is to create a community of veterans through online organizing and in-person retreats to help each other pursue alternative therapies and transition to civilian life. Or in other words, get vets stoned in the woods. All right, so that alone is an incredible service to humanity right now, is it not? It's sad that it seems like that's kind of passe, but no, it's still 22 a day, and that number might be very, very underreported.
It is underreported.
You want to talk about libertarians applying these ideas for practical shit? Well, fuck prohibition. We're going to get vets the good drugs that they deserve if they fought for any kind of bullshit mythology about freedom that got us to put our lives on the line in the first place. Amen. My campaign manager, great dude, Army vet, Elijah Gitzarelli, said, in giving me advice about political speaking, people don't care what you know until they know you care. And there's something to be said for those of us who are warriors, and I dare say that includes most people in this room, whether or not you served in the military, because just by putting your name on this list, you got somebody's attention who doesn't want you to be here, right? They have taken that noble desire to serve and perverted it into subservience. You see veterans with big beards at libertarian events, kind of a thing. We don't like being, forced to look like women so we can be submissive and obedient in some bullshit military command and control structure. There's an inherent rebellion for men as warriors wearing facial hair. And I know it sounds silly and petty, but it is really a symbolic revolt against that system of control. And to be as absolutely anti-militarism as possible is essential, and it is novel right now to say, yeah, no, that's bullshit. Killing for politicians makes you a soldier, not a warrior. And that distinction, to me at least, for the reasons that I enlisted and the reason that I do what I do today, that's very important. Finally, what's really novel, what I think is really important for everybody here to get, is to appreciate where we are as a species historically. Humanity started walking 300,000 something years ago. By the way, there were 9 other human species at the time, and you know what happened? We killed the others. That's what happened to them. The story of human evolution is evolving to a more peaceful, cooperative society, out of violence, out of trauma, towards harmony and cooperation. And when that walk started, our ancestors had no idea where they were going. They couldn't see that when they invented fire, that we would have, devices in our pockets that are extensions of our brains connected to the entire world. And where we are right now historically is like the peak of Mount Everest. Humanity has been walking along, and it's been exponential. But it looks flat from a distance at first. For a long time, it looks really, really flat. Quality of life, the human experience. But the nature of nature and intelligence and technology is exponential. And all of our ancestors have got us now to this point where we're at the peak. We're at the top of Mount Everest. And you know what our generation gets to do? We get to put the parts together for the rocket ship that they left there and get off of this planet. Where we're going is going to make this current human experience being exponential. It's a hockey stick, right? This is the asymptote. This is the time we're living in right now.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody.
Well, sorry, I'll wrap it up. Don't worry, Bob. Last thought. I got you. I know. Heaven forbid we have a libertarian event go late. Right? That would just be so unlibertarian of us. Always. But make no mistake, what we are doing as libertarians is not just being right about everything, is not even just fighting the injustice. We are putting the rocket ship together to take humanity to the next phase of the human experience, where militarism and war and government as we know it, as a violent, coercive, bullshit institution, are things of the past. Pretty novel, right?
All right. Thank you. Big hand for all 3 of our panelists.